Up-to-Date Cinephile.
I suppose we're doing it.
Okay, you might want to cut that conversation before, because that was a brilliant idea.
Oh no, that ain't going in.
Yeah,
it's from the clap on.
Oh, good. I just shared with Kyle a brilliant movie idea, and you will steal it. Someone will steal it.
Someone will steal it
because it's so good.
I think it is a great idea.
It's good and it's
we'll
sexy.
Make it happen.
It's gonna be good and sexy.
Good. It's the good Benedetta.
The good Benedetta. Yeah. So welcome everyone to Up-to-Date Cinephile. That's Kyle. I'm Ben. Dead Reckoner. I know movies and you don't.
Yeah.
We're both up-to-date cinephiles.
Yeah.
We're keeping you up to date on cinephilia.
Sounds like a disease.
Cinephilia. Oh, man. We got a bad case.
It's a sexually transmitted disease.
God, I got a bad case.
Yeah.
Of the cinephilia.
I definitely do have cinephilia.
You do.
Yeah, it's just it's a lifelong.
Yeah, Kyle's a recovering addict of various things, and he's poured it all. What he once got from smack, he now gets from movies.
Yes, this is true. Yeah. Well, today we're talking about, this is a rarity, I think, when it comes to movie conversations, because I think we've spoiled it for each other. We liked, I think, substantially both of these movies today.
We're doing two good ones, but don't worry. For you lovers of us spewing bile or doing ridiculous bits about the shitty movies we watch, we will return shortly with movies that are not good.
Oh, very soon.
Yeah, very soon you will be hearing from us about movies that are not so
Honestly,
good.
I think the next episode is ones that we do not... Oh, I definitely will not like.
You will be hearing from us. Maybe I'll take the pro just for something to do, right? I mean,
Make it interesting.
I mean, I am a sort of troll at heart.
Yeah,
so
true.
I might do it.
Yeah,
but even this one, I don't know. We'll see. We definitely are going to have some negative takes next week, but this is going to be just an orgy of positivity.
I think so. Yeah.
So if that's not your thing, if you're feeling dreary, if you're feeling down, then maybe this will pick you up. I don't know. Maybe you should just keep watching no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
We haven't even talked about, I guess, will we do West Side Story first?
Yeah, let's do
Red
West Side
Rock
Story
and West Side
first.
Story on deck today. Let's do West Side Story. I guess that's the bigger of the two. We
can
start with the more.
Although, it didn't do very well at the box office, but it is still the wider release. Oh, there's a lot of reasons why.
I don't fucking understand
Well, American populace has deviated or doesn't know how to digest actual musicals in a classic variety, which that's what this is. I don't think there is there's obviously a group of nostalgia for this West Side Story. I mean, it's a great stage musical. It's a great film from 1961, 60 years ago. People applaud, Stephen Sondheim, Bernstein, and everything that went into the construction of the first movie. And so there was a lot coming into this. And so I think you have a minority of people who have an appreciation of classic musicals, such as me. I really do.
No, you do. You're an appreciator.
Well, and that comes into conflict with modern musicals, because In the Heights was a bore for me because of its extended runtime, its inability.
I didn't see it. For full disclosure, I didn't see it.
Well, its inability to let music and choreography breathe, like its rapid editing. Again, this is it defines our age of action movies, musicals, everything. Everything has to be cut to keep your attention. And that's the
keep
opposite.
My headache. I think it's a conspiracy.
Yes.
It's a conspiracy between the film industry and the manufacturers of Excedrin.
Yeah.
I think Bayer Pharmaceuticals, maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe not. To give me headaches. So I have to go take medicine.
Yeah.
To alleviate the pain of watching movies that do not have any shot that is longer than 0.7 seconds.
Yeah.
It's really kind of avant-garde when you think about it, But
Yeah.
I guess maybe it isn't. Maybe, I don't know. It sucks. It's a hard way to watch movies.
It really is.
It's not. It's an overused tactic that I suspect is often used to create a sense of excitement where one otherwise would not exist, and also because the people are not very good.
Yes.
Right?
All of those are
the
reasons.
longer you hold a shot, the longer you do a shot, the more talent you need from yourself as a director, the people working for you, technically your actors, right? Yep. All these things are harder, right? And I don't I don't like it when they do so many of those things.
Yeah.
We're getting very technical already, but I think that was one of the first things that stands out about this production. I mean, I don't know if we really have to worry about spoilers, not spoilers. This is West Side Story.
That's true.
You know what happens. I mean, it's not even really particularly important, but it's a classic story. It is such just a pleasure to watch. Like, if you see this thing and you just don't like it, I'm not sure what you want out of movies.
Yes, it's true.
Like, because there are plenty of movies I like. You know, I feel this way about people. I feel this way about food. I feel this way about a lot of things. There's the things I like that I can see why people don't like. I can see why people don't like David Lynch or something. You know, obviously I'm a huge David Lynch fan. I'm always going blah blah blah. David Lynch, slobbering over him. I can see why people don't like his movies.
Yeah,
they're not for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of great things aren't for everyone, but something like this, you know, I feel this way about Motown music, or I don't know, like chocolate cake. I mean, like, if you don't like this, I mean, what are you in it for?
Yeah.
What are you in it for? Because yes, you've got a director whose technical prowess is such, and who works with all the best people, right? I mean, he's going to have the best cinematographers, the best people.
Janusz Kaminski is one of the best cinematographers.
Yes, he's going to get the best cinematographer. The music is conducted by Gustavo Dudamel from the L.A. Phil. He got Tony Kushner, probably the greatest living playwright. Yeah. You know,
and that's
to write the screenplay.
Yeah, and that's not the first time they've collaborated. Kushner also wrote one of his best movies, is Munich.
Yeah.
And so he has a grand sensibility to give it grit, give it substance, give it characterization, and they do a good job.
But I mean, I think we both went into this movie thinking, like, is this something that needs to exist?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I'm skeptical, and we're both skeptical of remaking true classic movies, right?
Yeah.
Like canon level movies, right? And so we went in skeptical. I went in skeptical, but it turns out, like, if you strike a collaboration between, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, Tony Kushner, Rita Moreno, Jerome Robbins, Stephen Sondheim, Leonard Bernstein, and William Shakespeare, if you put all those people together, probably something good will come out.
Yeah.
I mean, and the truth is, and this goes back to something we've talked about a lot, part of the reason that something good does come out is because it's all those geniuses and nobody else.
Yeah.
And Steven Spielberg is one of the only people, maybe the only person, right, who could get $100 million or whatever to remake a classic movie that many people, including myself, initially think, well, does this really need to be remade? With basically unknown actors outside of the goddess, the genius, the great Rita Moreno.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the next most famous actor is Ansel Elgort, who's not exactly like a household name.
He's not a household name.
Right? Although his name is very memorable in its ridiculousness, so maybe more people will remember it now.
True.
But he can get the juice to do it, and to do it exactly the way he wants to do it, with exactly the people he wants to do it.
Yeah.
And that shines through because it's a Steven Spielberg movie, and it is made with such technical excellence, including this ability to, like, let the camera not just show something for, like, just the most subtle things, like the way they would sort of kind of go from casually talking into dancing back, just kind of the way they would transition. He'd show the transition. He didn't use a cut to hide it. He would, I mean, sometimes maybe he did, but he would show them kind of like loosely talking and then go into the dance and come back out. It's just so, it's just to watch someone who can, like, make a movie. To me, it's like, just on that level alone, it's amazing. And I mean, this movie had me won over from that opening oneer. Oh, yeah. Classic Spielberg oneer to open the movie.
It has a wonderful tracking shot with
it's like, okay, you motherfucker.
Got
you
the
got
whistles.
me. You got me.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I give up.
Yeah, as soon as he emerges and you get the snaps and the jets are coming together, like with this whistle call and the choreographed nature of this. I mean, just the spectacle-driven nature of this musical, and what you need to have rhythm and fluidity. The thing is Spielberg's been doing that his whole career with action movies, like putting together action set pieces. You think of like in Jurassic Park, T-Rex chasing the car. You think of Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Even how about Temple of Doom? Even more so, the opening of Temple of Doom is almost a musical. I mean, there's something of musical quality in Hook, which was supposed to be a musical.
Jaws, right?
Yeah.
Just like that. That's like maybe the most iconic song from a film ever.
Yeah,
right.
And so that's the thing. Musicals are combining camera movement with rhythm, fluidity, and orchestration and choreography. I mean, movies are just that. Movies are a sense of choreography if you know how to create that kind of rhythmic sensibility. And Steven Spielberg's been doing it his whole career. He's learned this quality. And what's so fascinating and lovely about the movie is the fact that he maybe only he can do this $100 million picture with unknowns, and all of these unknowns, accomplished Broadway performers have been a part of ensemble casts of from Hamilton to Dear Evan Hansen, are fantastic, and getting them to allow themselves to showcase their abilities and not cross-cut and hide, just to let the camera move and sit
and I mean
and dance.
And,
it's great,
and it all just looks great. The actors look great, the dancing looks great. It's just, I mean, it's funny because one of those I don't know, on my Facebook feed, an old interview with Spielberg popped up from Sight and Sound, talking about making Close Encounters. And even making Close Encounters said, I don't really like to write. Like, I don't like writing. That's why I do this stuff on the set, and we improvise it, and I write it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, so, okay, Steven Spielberg, you've picked a good option. Pick a great story. like because then we'll feature the thing that you do, right? Which is like, he's the apex predator. He is the Jaws of making a spectacle. He's the one. I mean, he's so influential in that regard. He's consistently the best at it. They're not all winners, but a lot of them are.
Yeah. This is true.
And also, I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, although I understand he's slowed down a little bit, but I do admire his output. Right. One thing that bothers me or annoys me about certain directors is, they kind of wait for the perfect movie. They don't make a lot of movies. I mean, he's put out a lot of movies.
He does.
And respect to him, because if you want to have a career where you're consistently having output, they can't all be Raiders of the Lost Ark. They can't all be Jaws.
Yeah, and I've lamented. I mean, he hasn't, after Munich, it was kind of a steady downturn
he's getting
for
old,
me.
though. He's getting old.
Well, and I know even the ones that people propped up, such as Lincoln. I think Lincoln's fine. I think it's got some great performances, from Tommy Lee Jones and Daniel Day-Lewis, and Sally Fields.
Well, we've talked about this. I actually liked Ready Player One. I'm not gonna put it up there with his best work by any means, but like in an age where cookie cutter Marvel movies completely erase their directors, right? We talked about this earlier with Chloe Zhao. I mean, Eternals just bears no trace of her.
Yeah.
Right? Ready Player One is a Steven Spielberg movie.
It does maintain a voice,
a lot of the good, and quite frankly, some of the things I don't like, right? He does get a little schmaltzy sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Right?
He is defined by sentimentality a lot.
He's a sentimental guy, and that has pros and cons, but I think his sentimentality has been elevated in my eyes recently in the wake of like when almost every spectacle. I mean, because we talked about this. I mean, him and George Miller, right, seem to be the only ones who get to make movies at this level that they want to make.
Yeah.
And that are their movies through and through. Yes, in some of the Marvel comedies, the directors get to put a bit of a stamp on it.
Yeah, you get flashes of personality, not the whole thing.
Yes,
you get James Gunn, and only really James Gunn and Taika Waititi shine through on that.
Yes. Well, and Villeneuve, right? Villeneuve is the emerging guy who gets to make movies that are...
Yeah, Dune is at that level.
But even Arrival, I mean, he makes large-scale movies.
Blade Runner, yeah.
Blade Runner to some extent, but I mean, dealing with the legacy of... I mean, that's why... So that's why West Side Story versus Blade Runner, that's a good contrast, because Blade Runner is so stylistically informed by its predecessor that you can only go so far. Whereas from a visual standpoint, with West Side Story, it doesn't he's free to remake it visually for the most part.
He is,
right. There's not it's not like so much of Blade Runner is the visual aesthetic that how much freedom do you have. Whereas when you remake West Side Story, it's about the story and the music, right? And so his ability to make just a visual tour de force, basically using his using the thing that he is the best at, which is making spectacles.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we're so hard on some of these Marvel movies, and rightfully so, but we are. But to me, I love spectacle movies. Not, I'm a child of the 80s, and I'm a child of the rise of Spielberg and Lucas, right? But I also have to concede that the world that they have wrought, which is now dominated by comic book movies, has produced a lot of shit. I mean, there's a lot of... I don't want no spectacles. I want better spectacles. And Spielberg takes this classic story, and he says, okay, we're going to run with it. I'm going to get the best guy there is to rewrite it.
Yeah.
And we're going to go with it. And you know what? I'll be damned if it doesn't work.
It everything really does work. And we'll get into some details on characters and how some things work, but generally I think the sumptuous, delectable feature of this movie is that it moves, flows, and operates like a classic musical. And for me, it was jaw-dropping on that note. Just to watch the dancing. I mean, the America sequence is so colorful, so vibrant,
great,
so
great,
pristinely executed.
But I mean, like you already talked about the opening sequence, right?
Yeah,
like
opening sequence
where nobody
too.
says anything; they're all just whistling each other together.
Yeah.
I think the first line is "Come on." And
Yeah.
it's a decent number of minutes into the movie.
Yeah, no,
right. It's just it's just. I mean, like I said, when you're that good,
it
right?
sets
when you're
mood.
that good,
And
you can do shit like that.
Exactly. When you set the mood in this way, in this form, he right away you know exactly the rhythmic and tone quality this is taking on, and you just go. It's like the beginning of a roller coaster. Just to equate it to a spectacle, a really good roller coaster has anticipation and sets the mood of the rise and then the drop. And that's what he's constantly doing through this. And that's the great use of spectacle, is to anticipate and deliver.
Well, and he has a story that is already so good.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the Romeo and Juliet story is as close to the bone as any story in modern history.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about a story that is like an iconic pillar of modern storytelling.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? The tragic love of two young people. And the specific beats and all that. It's all, the story is iconic. The music is, I mean, Leonard Bernstein, greatest composer, greatest American composer in the 20th century. You've got the greatest musical sort of writer in Sondheim. I mean, it's just, we're talking about the product of, like I said, a group of people who are at the top of their craft. Like, even if you don't agree with me that these are the greatest people, they're certainly
they're top tier.
In any top tier, any reasonable top tier, right?
I wanted to talk about the Romeo and Juliet because obviously West Side Story is hugely influenced on that. This version, I thought, was really kind of incisive about Romeo and Juliet, the assumptions about it, because Keaton and I talked about this the other day, about Romeo and Juliet gets postulated, put up as a great love story. I actually don't see it as that. I see it as a tragedy. And what is the tragedy? It's that they're immature, they're young, they don't know what they're doing, but they feel something. I think that genuinely they feel attraction, affection, whatever it is.
It's first love. It's first love, no question.
And there's an idyllic quality to that. There's an idealization. And what happens is that it gets expunged by hate and division.
Yes.
And in Spielberg's version, I think slightly more so than the 1961 version, has a finger on the pulse of the immaturity of these two characters. Maria in particular.
Yes, she's very childlike.
Yes.
She is very dewy.
Yeah.
And ingenue-ish.
Very, yeah. And because of that, I was actually really impressed by the additions of layers that they do with characters. Not only Maria, what they do with this wonderful actor, Mike Feist, who plays Riff. Riff, played by Russ Tamblyn, and the original is just...
We love Russ Tamblyn. We love you, Russ Tamblyn.
He was incredible, fantastic, but he's a punk. He's just simply defined as a punk, and he hates. And what I like about in this movie, they give it layers of fatalism, that he's suicidal, maybe. He does not necessarily fit in this world.
Well, and they also do a really good job of emphasizing the extent to which these people should be on the same side.
Yes, like they do that. The Lincoln Center
these people,
build-up.
They should be on the same side, right? Which makes it even more tragic, right? Because really, they have a common interest.
They do.
And they're being divided. I mean, the movie doesn't sort of get into what's dividing them or what forces may wish for them to be divided, nor should it. I mean, it's plenty. Yeah. It's got plenty in it.
Yeah.
But it does go. It does with the depiction of Riff and the sort of idea of. Basically you have, and this point is made explicit early on in the movie with the detective who kind of, what does he call him? It's a good line. You're the last of the can't make it Caucasians.
One criticism I have, I love the line, I love the stuff. I don't love Corey Stoll as the police chief.
I guess he was fine.
He's
for
fine.
me.
There was a lacking vigor in that delivery.
But I mean, Krupke was great. That was a great performance of Officer Krupke.
Yeah, Brian James Darcy. God, he who played infamously played Shrek on Broadway.
Well, we all got to eat.
No, he's great. He's great as Shrek. He's fantastic.
But so you sort of meet you do get that sense with Riff's backstory and Tony's backstory and kind of these are two groups of people that should have solidarity with each other, but for various historical reasons they don't.
Yeah.
And you've got, the changing of the guard, right? Yeah. In terms of kind of the working class and kind of which is like an age-old story in New York City, right? I mean, if you go to the Lower East Side Tenement Museum, right, it's like, well, it was the Germans here, and then it was the Irish. And, it's just like each wave of immigrants who come in, poor and trying to claw their way up.
Who weren't accepted at first, and then they come into the fold. Yeah.
So it's an age-old New York story, and you get this kind of this last iteration of it, right? Yeah. And but it emphasizes that in a way that I think it does augment the sense of tragedy.
Yeah,
because it further throws into relief the extent to which this conflict is so sad and unfortunate and unnecessary.
And it's interesting because I think that does take a look back, the way that Kushner is writing the book, the way that Spielberg is emphasizing the tragedy elements of these two sides, that they have more in common than they do not. Back then, obviously, it was about racism. There was division, and that was separating them. But now, in the future, we can look back and go, "Oh, you were fighting over nothing. There was a futility to this action.
You should have been fighting the other people. You should have gotten together and fought the people who were trying to displace you, and you would have had a lot of power then. But that's not the way it played out, right? So I thought that was a great. You're right. That character gets more depth. The backstory, Tony gets more depth. Yeah. And the combination of that does enhance the feeling of tragedy, right?
Yeah.
Because you get this social conflict whereas with Romeo and Juliet, right, it's just the Capulets and the Montagues, and that's just a stand-in for anything, right? Yeah. Any two groups of people that are, just like the prologue says, these two houses that have been warring for forever or whatever. Nobody even knows why, right? Some age-old feud.
Yeah.
Whereas West Side Story is grounded in much more socially relevant kind of problems, right? Which is part of what makes it resonate, right? Is that it's not just it does bring the story into the modern era with a conflict I think we all unfortunately can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's because of that undercurrent that is subtly set up. I mean, there's a lot of direct nods to it, which is Spielberg in a sense. But I think it helps orient you and put into context the emotional tragedy to this, because when you get to the infamous Rumble, which I think is one of the best sequences in a musical I've ever seen.
Yeah, great.
Just the grit. It feels like dance, but it also feels like fighting. It's brutal. It is a brutal sequence. You feel those bricks. You feel those pipes.
But also, it's brutal in its. I mean, the build up to it and how much invested you are in these characters.
Yes.
And yes, you know it's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We all know. I mean, I guess some younger people who are going to watch this may not know exactly how it plays out.
Yeah. This is what is in its favor is that anybody who has not seen the original, this is really good, and so you should. I mean, if this gets you to watch the original, that's great. But also, this holds its own, and so I think this is a worthy addition to that watch.
And this is what brought me around to the idea of remaking this movie, right? Because for a second I was thinking, well, why would you remake a true classic, right? Nobody needs to see another Citizen Kane, right? Like, no, we don't need that. Some things are good, but the truth is, Shakespeare is remade all the time. Musicals are restaged all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
I do think there's something for and I think that's the difference between West Side Story and other great movies. Other great movies are these like auteur products. Like Citizen Kane is Citizen Kane because of Orson Welles. It's his movie, right? To make it for anyone else to make it would just be a pale imitation.
It's true.
Why not just take the themes of it and tell your own story, right? Which has been done a million times.
Social
right?
Network.
Like, yeah. Or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, whereas this is an iconic story that, as much as it's the product of brilliant people, it's something we all kind of own. In the same way we all now kind of own Shakespeare, right? And Shakespeare is so deep in the veins of particularly, English drama and theater that it's just kind of everywhere, right? It's kind of infuses the way we talk, the way we think about stories. These things have been staged a million times. They've been committed to film a million times. They've been set in every possible way you can think, further in the past, further in the future, blah, 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 right? So I feel like a story like that, I get it, because it has a different kind of cultural significance, because it's a story that that's part of us, right? In a way that some stories, that's his story, that's her story. This is kind of our story. And so to retell it, to bring it back the same way you would do a revival on Broadway, the same way that you would do another production of Romeo and Juliet, to me, I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
A musical like this exists as a separate idea of storytelling that is less about the vision of one person that we've preserved on film, and it's more like a communal story that, yes, maybe we should revisit every half a century, right? And make into a new version that reintroduces it to the masses. The same way we would with fairy tales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this story is more on the level of that than like a specific story from a specific time that is kind of owned by a specific person.
And that's very true. And I think the message...
Does that make sense what I said? 'Cause
absolutely.
That's what I came around to thinking is like, you know what, this isn't like remaking Citizen Kane. This isn't like remaking Vertigo, right?
It's another stage production.
Because it's not and never would have been like the work of an auteur, right?
No.
It's not like remaking Breathless,
it also wasn't
right?
defined as an auteur work.
I mean, it would be like remaking, I don't know, like Singing in the Rain, right? Like, I know that's a timeless classic.
That would be a bold move, wouldn't it?
But even then, I still feel like musicals, that would be the boldest, right? Do something like that.
Do Singing in the... But I got to tell you, if you do Singing in the Rain in an updated form, such as what Steven Spielberg is doing, and you get the capable quality actors, I'm not... Do not quote me as this is the person who should do this, but I'm reminded of the musical dance sequence in Hail Caesar by Channing Tatum, and they let that musical breathe as though it was like a 1950s stage musical. And it operated in that sense. They committed themselves to that sense. And I feel like you do that kind of work in a modernized sensibility to Singing in the Rain, you could remake that. You're right. There is a difference though.
Or another analogy I would make, and this bringing Spielberg, is like the story of Abraham Lincoln, right? It's a story that belongs to American history, right? But it's sort of communally held, right? And I understand there's not like one script, right? But it's just like I feel like I can understand the impetus to take this thing, which is such a such a broad cultural story and restage it.
Well, and that
it made after thinking about it, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
In a way that, I don't know. I don't know why Steven Spielberg wanted to make it. It doesn't really matter. But
I think there's an
I became sympathetic, at least more sympathetic to the idea of, okay, this is a thing that really makes sense.
I think Steven Spielberg, I mean, this is something, he loves this musical. He's wanted to do it forever. He wanted to do a musical forever. What I think lines up well with what you're saying is Steven Spielberg is not only the voice and creator of pop culture, Americana, the mythology of cinema, the mythology of storytelling. West Side Story is its own way a mythology. It has its origin on stage and in this film. It's one of the best musicals of all time, and there is that mythological stance fits really well in the articulation that Spielberg has. That it blends the two together.
Well, and also, I mean, his form of kind of the Hollywood blockbuster really replaced the musical as the primary filmic spectacle.
It is
we
true.
Would enjoy.
It was wanting for about a decade, and they found exactly what it is that the people wanted, and it fits right along in that vein. No, I totally agree with you that this is worthy of remake or restaging, and it's because I also think it's not an absent-minded sense of spectacle, because that message, even though broad, even though specific of its time, can relate to today. I think there's a lot of people feeling hate and divisiveness, racial,
but also like
barriers.
No great film is absent-minded.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, but also like this is the thing, right? You can make what is great about Spielberg at his best, right? And this is not his best, but it certainly is very good. Like I can't evaluate in terms of the other stuff, but it's certainly at least in like the second tier of like really good Spielberg movies.
Absolutely.
Even if it doesn't crack the top tier of like the timeless classics.
Yeah.
But it's that you can make a movie that is good and, dare I say, wholesome, while still delivering a lot of pure pleasure on the aesthetic front.
Yeah.
Which is that's what I want from movies like this. I want movies that seem to be interested in giving me cinematic pleasure.
Yeah.
Right? Doing the things that you can do with movies that are aesthetically just so pleasing. Mm-hmm. Why we go, like I went and saw this in Dolby, and I'm glad I saw it in Dolby. Big, loud, beautiful. Like, do it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard to watch, Eternals, right? I know we keep fucking ragging on Eternals or the Ghostbusters movie. It's like so much money, so much time, so much effort, so much energy to make this thing that is just dead.
Yeah, dreary, ugly.
That is just leaden.
Uninteresting. Yeah.
Right? Like
there's so much life in this movie.
Yeah,
life, vibrancy.
Give me just make me enjoy myself first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff can creep in. It can be redeeming, it can be wholesome, it can be heartwarming, it can be emotional. You can laugh, you can cry. I certainly did both of those in this movie. Just because you're entertaining me. Mm-hmm. This is entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? And it's cinematic entertainment.
Yes.
Right, which goes back to the old Scorsese point that I always harp on, which is that a lot of these movies, they're like a form of entertainment that is not cinematic.
Yeah.
They're on a movie screen, but they're not films.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not telling a story that is cinematic in nature.
No.
They're like, I don't know, like extended music videos or high budget television episodes.
Yes, what really it is. I wanted to ask you a few questions before we got moved on from West Side Story. So I only have minor criticisms of West Side Story, but they're so minor that because when I talk about this movie, that it's worthy of your time and attention. I think anybody out there who was curious or skeptical or hesitant, go see this in a movie theater.
This and if you have time this end of this year, this and Dune are the two movies I would say go and see them in a movie
that
theater.
High quality spectacle driven,
but also movies that
cinema.
You would really lose something if you didn't see it in a movie theater.
I do agree.
I mean, there are. I love to see. We're obviously Up-to-Date Cinephiles. We love to see every movie in the theater, but in terms of movies where you would benefit, I would go see this on the biggest screen. if you have IMAX, Dolby, whatever, this is the one. This is the one that I would make the effort, go the distance, shell out a little extra coin. Because I think, it'll be, if you see it in your home, it'll be great, right?
Yeah.
You'll still love it. But, like, it definitely was
you will lose
a movie that I was glad I saw in the most expansive, audiovisually impressive format.
It is enhanced for that reason. It does have an enhanced quality to see it in the theater. I really, really enjoyed it. It was one of my best theater experiences, minus the gal who sang every song and cried in between weepily the entire movie next to Katie.
You gotta cry silently.
Yeah, no, it was...
what is it the Japanese said about the roller coasters during the COVID? Scream in your heart.
Yeah.
Scream in your heart.
So the only thing... So there was an interesting... there's something interesting about the adaptation from stage to film, which is the same criticism I think you can be said about the 1961 version. That there is a division. The Rumble ends Act 1. That makes total sense. What ends up happening in this movie, and I think it's the same process in song cutting, is the next song is I Feel Pretty. And for me, it's just a jarring, weird tone. Now, talking it over with some people after the movie, they enhance the idea that there's an irony to
it's very painful to watch.
It's very
it's beautiful and painful.
Yeah, and maybe this is my recollection or my my own just like nostalgia memory for I Feel Pretty, that it is a wonderful like character driven song, but man, is it heightened by the impact of the Rumble in this movie. Like that rapid transition into I Feel Pretty, that irony is so bleak that it robbed me from any joy of the song. Like, so it was weird. It was just a weird experience.
No. See, in a way, I kind of like that.
No, I can see the benefit.
I have a similar issue, not so much with that, but like, I feel like the problem is I don't know what the solution is. I feel like there's like a little too much time after the Rumble till you get to the end of the movie.
I do agree.
I feel like there's just a little. It hovers over for just a little too long.
I agree.
But the issue with that is I would have to go back and really think about what would I take out.
Yeah.
Like what would I take out? And it's like, well, God, I can't take out A Place for Us, right? We can't take that out. No. The scene, basically the sexual assault scene, which is extremely important and effective, and
very, very effective update in this movie.
And you can't take that out, right?
No.
I mean, so it's like, what do I take out?
It is.
That's the issue, right? Because I do feel like it's not even that it drags. It's just like I feel like you end up waiting for the sword of Damocles to fall, just like one too many scenes or something. So I did feel that.
Yeah.
But like I said,
I agree.
I still would have to think like, well, what am I taking out?
I know.
Maybe you put I Feel Pretty before the Rumble.
Well, it's fun. It's
because then you have a different emotional impact, right? Which is that you go up and then you go down versus you go down and then you feel really down, right? It's down really and then further down because you're like, she's so happy. She's
so happy and high, and
she just is and just luminous.
No, and I get that,
but you're like watching it thinking like, oh my god, she doesn't know.
She doesn't know.
I mean, no, that's the dramatic irony, and it works. But you could do it like if you wanted to pace it differently, you could do I Feel Pretty, then the Rumble, and then you could have another moment where she's kind of in the afterglow of I Feel Pretty, and then what's his name? Chino comes out. So you could. But I mean, like, this is, I don't know. I mean, it makes it different. I don't know if it makes it better. But I see what you're saying. That scene is obviously dissonant. It's purposely dissonant. You can't, a blind person could see that. But whether it worked better the other way, I mean, I think you can make the case.
Well, and it's interesting because even the original adaptation, and they stuck with it in this adaptation, is that this is actually kind of a readaptation of the movie, not necessarily a readaptation of the musical. The Officer Krupke is, so you can imagine this, in the play, in the stage musical, is after the Rumble. Can you imagine that stretching that aspect. It would make that matter of what you're feeling worse, because I do agree. I think there is a long stretch. It almost lost me emotionally. The rumble is the peak emotion for me in this movie, which I think maybe it's supposed to be. But even though the tragedy,
oh yes, the most. It's very different, right?
Yeah.
Because what happen, even though you know what's going to happen, the way the rumble is just shocking.
Yeah.
And it is the event that's going to sort of lead the whole thing falling apart.
Yeah.
Whereas the end is more tragic in the kind of like, this was the inevitable conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, for better or worse, it's telegraphed very quickly, like what's probably going to happen.
Yeah. Yes.
Or at least what's on the table, right?
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis what Chino's going to do.
You're right.
But so what I'm saying, from the point at which you know that Chino, what his plan is,
Yeah.
to when he executes the plan, is a long time.
Very
for
long.
you to sort of be sitting there just waiting for the thing to happen that you know is going to happen.
Yeah.
And you can only hold on. I just feel like from a storytelling perspective, when a story has that level of tragic momentum, you can only hold on to it for so long.
It's
before
true.
You're like, just
let
get
it
on with
happen. Let it go.
Yeah.
Especially
we know
with
what's
the inevitable.
going to happen, or we
Yeah.
know he's going to try to do. So we got to get to that
We
scene
do.
where there's the confrontation, and whatever happens, happens. But
Yeah.
how long are you going to wait for us? Make us wait to get there?
And so ultimately, that brings me to my next criticism, because it kind of loses me in the last 20 minutes. And lose is I think a harsh word for it, because I was still engaged. I still wanted to watch what was happening. I still wanted to see how it was executed, and it does not trail in its brilliant execution in a filmic quality. And there's a lot of characters at the end, especially I have to give a shout out to Ariana DeBose, who plays
God.
Anita.
Revelation.
She is
I mean,
dynamite.
the two women
Dynamite.
are the ones who really, it's their movie.
Her and Rachel Zegler, excuse me, as Maria. They do shine. They do shine incredibly
Yeah, it's
well.
their movie.
And so there's some captivating elements that keep me involved. So it doesn't lose me. I'm like, I want this movie to be over. No, it was just like, emotionally, I wasn't as connected as I was up to the Rumble, because I think Mike Feist, David Alvarez, who plays Bernardo, who's excellent as well, they really, really hold you. But this is where my criticism comes in, and I'm actually not too critical of him, but Ansel Elgort. So actually, I came to Ansel Elgort's defense with a mutual friend of ours, Thelen Williams, who had a lot of criticism. This man is incredibly tall, and he's not a professional dancer, and I think you can tell. But it was funny, because Thelen was like, I didn't like his dancing, and I think that's fair on a technical
But
level.
that's always been the problem, right? Because you're going to have to dance next to Riff, and Riff is that's the dancer's part.
Well, and so this I came up with an academic bullshit reason for Ansel Elgort being an okay dancer. He's the one out of sync. He's the one out of rhythm with the world. He actually should not be as polished, because he is flailing. He does not know. He's attracted to this woman. He has this past. He has these regrets, this remorse, and I feel like he is out of rhythm and out of sorts with the production. And I think it works if you really think of it that way as a performative element. I don't know if it's intended, but I actually really think it helps, because that explains Tony, it explains his mindset, and it explains why he's a little out of sorts and taken over. And especially, I think it's "Cool" is the song where they're fighting over the gun, and it's great. It's a great updated, use of that psychological play between Riff and Tony. And Ansel Elgort does a lot well. I think as a singer, incredible. He comes out swinging, and I am convinced he has good Tony energy and rhythm. In the end, though, there's a weird rushed sense of his revelation to revelation to the lie that Maria is dead, that Chino killed Maria. And he has this weird reaction, which even the movie knows that it's bad because they cut away from it. He comes off as like Phantom of the Opera, and he puts his hand up, and it's so over dramatic and over stylized that it's so it's so weird. And then when it comes to Tony's death, and there's this like quiet non-reaction from a lot of people, especially Rita Moreno character, who's we haven't talked about, but is a reinvention of the Doc character.
Yeah.
And she has no reaction to Tony being dead. Instead, she grabs Chino's hand and like walks him to the police, which again it has someone pointed out has weird racial complications, that she would be willing to hide Tony and let him escape after he's killed someone, but Chino has to face the police.
Yeah, although I mean, in fairness, right? They're no, I know, right? But although I mean, Chino kills Tony in cold blood.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Tony's. I mean, I think
there's a difference.
I mean, his would be a very credible case of self-defense.
The whole aspect of the Rumble is.
Yeah, I mean, but that being said, like, I mean, I'll say this about El Gore, like, none of them. All I can say is what my experience was, and none of it clanged for me. And when I say clang, we all know what that means. When you see something that's just dissonant in your mind, none of it clanged for me. Like that all I can say is I never looked and thought like, ooh, that's self-consciously bad dancing.
Yeah.
Or ooh, he's not. I don't buy him as this character.
No, I bought him. He was good.
So none of it did for me.
And this, by the way, this comes from someone who doesn't really like Ansel Elgort in the past. Like, I'm not a big fan of Baby Driver, which I would say is a musical of sorts. You know, it's rhythmic, it's fluid, it has that kind of similar spectacle sensibility that we've been talking about. But Ansel Elgort is very good in this, and he sold it for me.
Yeah, it worked for me. I mean, but I mean, part of that is I was bought into this movie.
Yeah, I bought into the movie.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. I mean, Rita Moreno, goddess, genius,
they give her
living legend.
They give her the song. I forget the song now, but they give her
it done at 90. Getting it done.
Yeah,
right?
she
Amazing.
Sounds great. There's some additions. Who's the character? It's they come. It's not trans necessarily, but certainly it's a non-binary kind of update of anybody's. Yeah. I mean, so they give a lot of more layers to anybody's, and they give a lot more layers to this Doc character and this relationship that they have reinvented. And some of it works really well. Some of it, I think, is a little stretched for its validity.
My only issue with anybody's character, I have no problem making them non-binary. I think it kind of adds an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah.
But they are so, like, from the very beginning, they're in a lot of scenes kind of, like, very conspicuously kind of darting around.
Just around.
Just in a way that is, like, you can do that once or twice to plant the idea of them in the movie, but I feel like there's...
You almost don't need to show it.
Especially in the gym scene, there's just so many moments where it's like, look at me, and that's just a directorial choice. That's nothing on the actor, but I thought, like, okay, I get it. Like, it was overplanted a bit.
Yeah.
Because it was distracting in terms of just, like, you don't need to keep letting me know that this character is out there.
Yeah, this is the thing.
I know now.
This is the thing sometimes with Steven Spielberg and his heightened technicality. Sometimes he overdoes it.
And also the character is over-determined to be visible. Not just because they're non-binary, but also because they dress completely differently than anyone.
Than anybody.
Right, they dress kind of like a punk.
Yeah.
Like, with, like, torn-up jeans and stuff. So they look, like, very modern, which, once again, is fine, but it doesn't... I don't need... Because you've made this person so visible, I don't need you to tell me again and again, like, oh, look at this person is important, they're going to play a role later.
Yeah. They're
ostracized, they're considered different because they're non-binary or trans or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that, I thought, like, okay, I get it. That was... I noticed that particularly in the gym sequence, which is also another brilliant set piece.
Yeah.
But that's, like you said, it's a very minor quibble.
Yeah, they're all minor quibbles. It's just more for a full conversation of what this movie is offering, where are its strengths. Most of it works in its favor, and where those strengths kind of veer into an overproduction. I mean, I liked some of the quality of the... I mean, you get one of the added scenes is Riff getting the gun from some Irish bar with a black guy, and the scene is good. It is heavily produced. You have these stage lights, like, coming and shining. It's almost like J.J. Abrams' lens flares happen. It's like lens flare.
He does some heavy duty lens flaring in this movie. Like, he lets some real wilds, especially
It
like
is.
when they're behind the bleachers. Like I was like, whoa, man, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
You're letting it happen, but it worked.
It works in this context. A friend of Katie's and mine, his name's Steve, he was talking about how it's almost kind of a reference to it being a stage production, that it is kind of entering, especially in the dreamlike qualities, that it is on the stage and these are stage lights piercing through. With
well, that's
that
why
in
even
mind,
in like the gritty scene, he does that, right?
Yes.
Because like that scene could be from Goodfellas, right?
Could
like,
be.
I mean, it's a very like, okay, I'm going to buy a gun from a gangster kind of scene, but the way they shoot it is it has that element, but it still is like within the aesthetic universe of that this movie is creating, which is once again, it's a very specific. It's hard to even describe because it's not exactly staged, but it's not exactly realistic. So
it's an interesting blend.
It has a kind of dreamlike quality to it, where you feel like, which works for a scene which works for this story, right? Which is at one point kind of realistic and gritty in terms of the subject matter, but also has people breaking out into song and dance in the street, right? Which is not something people generally do.
No.
But yeah, you already mentioned her, but I want to just carve out a moment before we move on to sing the praises of, I think, Anna DeBose.
Anita. Yeah.
She plays Anita.
Ariana. Excuse me. I probably
Ariana DeBose.
Ariana DeBose. Apologies.
She plays Anita. Absolute revelation. Absolutely electric. Cannot take your eyes off of her. Brilliant performance. I cannot imagine having to walk onto a set to play Rita Moreno's role with Rita Moreno. I cannot imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be like walking on the set to play, I don't know, Hamlet, and like Laurence Olivier is standing there. That, I mean, it's just, you can't even begin to say that the kind of pressure that puts on. I mean, I guess she was a company member in Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
And the way I mean, in a movie full of great performances, and really solid acting,
all across the board.
Her performance and her interpretation of that character is a revelation. I am extremely impressed by her, and yes, I think she should hopefully get some Oscar
she better.
noise or something. For best
she's exceptional.
Because I think that performance, just like I said, to do that. I mean, that is put on your big girl pants kind of stuff, right? Because you're like, there's Rita Moreno. She did this.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic roles ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, from one of the most iconic actors ever, right? Yeah, you got to play her role.
Yeah.
It's like, I just can't. I mean, like, and not only does she do it, but she to me is
big high heels to fill.
And she to me is. I mean, like I said, it's her movie and Maria's movie.
Yeah.
To me, the guys are good, Riff's good, El Gordon, like you said, is good. He brings it off. And Rita Moreno is awesome to see her, and she does a great job.
Yeah.
At almost 90.
It doesn't come off as gimmicky with her.
No, so there's nobody who I have particular criticisms for, but she is a revelation.
Stunning.
And
exceptional.
I just can't. And like I said, to go in and do that in that circumstance, I can't. That's real shit.
Yeah.
So. Nothing but respect and praise for her in particular.
She's incredible, and
because I mean that's one of those things. Just like, okay, I'm gonna be watching you.
Yes.
What are you gonna do next? Like,
I hope that is the reaction everybody's having.
Yeah, I mean, because she is just, yeah. I might have a crush on her. I'm gushing now. Don't.
No, absolutely.
Don't judge me. The heart wants what it wants.
It does. No, honestly. Well deserving of that praise. I think she comes, like you said, even with an exceptional spectacle delivery, which itself is so immersing that everybody kind of fits into that rhythm and line, and so all the performances are pitch perfect. Really, minus Corey Stoll. I'll still harp on that, but he's fine. He works. He's not in it much. But like everybody, Mike Face, David Alvarez, everybody is fitting so nicely. I mean, even you get the Officer Krupke sequence, and you get these other guys to shine, and it's wonderful. Like everybody is really good.
Yeah,
but
and using these lesser known actors.
Yeah.
It's like I
wonderful.
said, only Spielberg gets to do this.
I know.
If this is done by someone else, it's a bunch of actors you fucking know, and maybe they've done a good job, right? I'm not saying they
Maybe.
would, but it lets the thing have a kind of ensemble quality, and it also lets these new actors have their moment. Which, like
Yeah.
I said, I'm sure we haven't heard the last from these folks. But,
No, not at all. But yeah,
it's
Ariana
it's
DeBose.
great.
Yeah, I'm glad you went on a rant because I agree. I 100% agree. She is so exceptional in this role, and I really hope this launches her into stardom because she is so captivating and so good.
But like I said, I mean, I guess this is the thing, right? If you don't like this, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want from movies.
It's true.
What are you looking for? What do you think you're gonna get? I mean, I love lots of different kinds of movies: quiet movies, loud movies, big movies, small movies, but short movies, tall movies. But but this is like, to me, is a very cinematic experience, and is very much sort of exists to offer pleasures that are sort of purely cinematic.
Yeah. No.
And so for that alone, I think it's well worth the time.
Really go see this movie. It's really unfortunate we're talking on a Monday post weekend analysis of its box office return, and it was bad. It was bad. It was at only $10 million.
Did it open wide, or is it
opened wide?
Yeah.
And it's already.
It'll have legs though. It'll have legs through the
I hope
holidays.
so.
I think
hope
when
so.
people go on break, they'll take their families to see it and stuff like that.
I hope it's a Greatest Showman situation because Greatest Showman opened up to like $8 million, but then kept making.
And
like
also,
$8
it's
million.
getting insane reviews, which will help it a lot.
I really
I bet
do
you.
hope
I
so.
bet you it'll have some legs.
I hope so.
Especially because, quite frankly, the we're gonna go through this period where I think that demo is gonna be a little bit underserved leading up. Even, I mean, what other movies do you want to go to with your family?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll tell you this: we're going to be seeing a lot of movies in December because we have this whole slate of to be up to date and catch up, and some of them aren't worthwhile and all that. But I'll tell you this: I think I am going to make the time to go see West Side Story again.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing where you're like, I might have to see that on a big screen one more time while I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should we talk about Red Rocket? I feel like
let's get into a different sense of Americana, huh?
It is true. It is true. These two, we're going to talk about two movies that are very deep in the American consciousness.
Yeah, but very different.
But very different. But I think, yeah, I mean, so we're talking about Sean Baker's Red Rocket.
And we should put it out there that we are both huge Sean Baker fans.
I think that Sean Baker is sort of the great filmmaker of the American 21st century demimonde. I don't think that anyone is going to the corners that he's going to.
Yeah.
We had this conversation earlier talking about Mike Mills. Like, I love Mills, and Mills is kind of looking at America through himself, right? Which is a very normal way to tell stories. You kind of tell your story.
Yeah.
Right,
and try and understand your family
that story
dynamic.
Then becomes kind of an American story because you're here, and the way that you learn about things, the way you get insight is by looking at them closely, right?
Yeah.
So you look at yourself closely, maybe. Well, Baker is looking at other people closely. He's outward looking.
Yeah.
Right. He picks these particular subcultures, I guess you'd say, for lack of it, or corners of the world that are, maybe either underreported on, or I would say that people have stereotypical attitudes. For instance, with the Florida Project, we're talking about poor people
who rent out hotels.
Talk about a lot. We have all kinds of opinions about poor people.
Yeah,
how they're to blame for their situation or how unfortunate it is to be them, but we don't actually generally evince a tremendous amount of curiosity about them, really.
Yeah, this humanistic curiosity. That
Tangerine,
Baker
we might exoticize trans prostitutes, but how much do we really look at and care what their day-to-day life actually is?
Who they are as people.
Yeah, what is it to actually be in that world, as opposed to just simplistic, I should say, analyses or judgments. Isn't that sad?
Or they're reduced almost to a not just a stereotype, but almost a statistic.
I guess the left knee-jerk response is, isn't it sad? And the right knee-jerk response is, you're kind of responsible. Like, why did you do this to
Yeah,
yourself?
in a very general sense that it does divide that way.
But
Yeah.
but what those analyses share, right, is a very simplistic view of how shitty it is to be this person, as opposed to a much more expansive view of how these people live and how they get by and where they find joy, where they find pleasure, where they find amusement, what keeps them going from day to day, the love that they have for each other, the way they're integrated into communities, all the sorts of complexities and levels of life that we see in ourselves, we see in our friends, all the nuance. I mean, that's one of the great tragedies of these communities, right, is we look down on them and we generalize. We say, I mean, this is honestly, I think part of the reason I love Sean Baker's movies is autobiographical, which is that one of my first jobs out of school was working with troubled youths in Washington, D.C., in what was widely regarded, where I lived, in the more affluent part of D.C., as just a wasteland, right? Urban wasteland type stuff. East of the Anacostia River in Washington, D.C., that's where Southeast is, they call it. And the people who don't live down there generally think of it as like some sort of urban wasteland a la RoboCop, right?
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. And this is problematic for someone who cares about these issues because you do want to highlight the problems that are there, which are real and are significant and are terrible, right?
Yeah.
But you also do not want to allow those communities or the people who live there it's just not this endless tapestry of hatred and nightmare and violence the way we depict inner cities and the way we depict high crime neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods. There's a lot of love. It's just like any other group of people, right? It's there's love, there's anger, there's frustration, there's fun, there's happiness, there's joy. And the only real difference is that some of the pressures are greater, which leads to some worse outcomes for some people.
Yeah.
But even then, in that kind of neighborhood, the number of people who are actually going to commit a violent crime is vanishingly small.
Very small.
Right? And so, and also those communities can be themselves very diverse. Like there's pockets of relative, I won't say affluence, but there's pockets of more middle-class people. There's pockets of working-class people. There's pockets of people who are just very poor, right? And so they're very, I think we generalize upon groups of people and we lose the diversity, right, that exists within these groups.
Yeah.
And what I love about Sean Baker's movies is that when he looks at these communities, he depicts them in very vibrant, complex ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've compared him at one point, like in a very European sensibility. He's like Richard Linklater in American sense, but it goes a little deeper. He has this, you have this Italian kind of neorealism approach that he has, where he is really immersing you, enveloping you in I think in Florida Project and Tangerine, in kind of a visceral but like roller coaster and empathetic way. Red Rocket, we'll get into it, is almost different, immersing you and you feel grimy and you feel dirty.
Yes, he
and
definitely
you feel
goes in
awful.
It's the same but also different.
Different, yeah.
But like what's striking to me about Tangerine, for instance, Tangerine is an incredibly funny movie.
Oh, very funny.
Like you start out a Sean Baker movie, if you don't know anything about him but like the basic premise. You know that he shot that one on an iPhone, which was what
almost
got it
doesn't
pub.
matter.
But that's what got it pub. Like that was the
true.
thing that got written up in papers. Like, wow, this guy made a movie using just iPhones. And you think, oh, trans prostitutes like living on the street. This is gonna be a real fucking downer. And guess what? It is hilarious.
It's hilarious,
and it is electric. Like it is a movie that is like strap in.
Once it starts, it doesn't stop.
You can't stop watching. Too. It's an absolute, talk about a roller coaster ride. It's like a roller coaster, but it's like the one at Disneyland, which shoots you right away from the front. There's no buildup. It just goes.
Yeah.
And it becomes this very, like, once again, talk about cinematic pleasures. Like, it's a fun movie to watch. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there's another filmmaker who's as good, maybe ever, right? And making movies that are simultaneously, like you said, like neorealist, but are so fun and funny to watch,
insightful and entertaining,
which is what makes him such a brilliant and unique filmmaker.
Yes,
is that he really does the ultimate 1-2 punch of I'm gonna entertain you first, and then I'll give you something to think about.
And you'd think that kind of person would have a larger personality, but he is a quiet, humble man.
Yeah, actually, when we talked about this, I actually saw him at a Q&A. Very friendly.
Yeah,
I mean, he'll talk like he's. He's not like a big personality.
No, he is.
Right?
I've only met him in person, talked with him in person, and he's just kind of quiet and to himself. Like,
yeah, I mean,
he's
he's from rural New Jersey, just a friendly. Yeah, I mean, he certainly does contrast with the very colorful characters that he makes movies about.
It's very
right?
true. Yeah,
he does. I mean, watching him, because I saw the Q&A with him and Simon Rex, and watching the two of them next to each other. I mean, Simon Rex, he is that guy. He's not that guy, but he is that guy, right? Yeah. And he's like a reformed version of that guy. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair to Simon, I mean, he was never like a suitcase pimp like his character, but he was,
such a good how that sequence is filmed. It almost because it's really grimy, 16mm, Super 16, and it's really like gritty and down to earth, but then when it gets to that moment, it becomes super stylized, and I loved it for that reason. It's like she calls him a suitcase pimp, and he's like, "What'd you call me?" Suitcase pimp. Like, I was just like, I love this artistic choice, and just how he is engaged in this conversation, how he's absorbing it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because when you set a tone and you deviate from it, has more of a punch. And Sean Baker's brilliant at doing that.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, is Sean Baker my favorite filmmaker working the game? Probably.
Might be. He's up there.
Probably,
for sure.
Yeah, because I think that, I really like Starlet, but it's a little bit of a forgotten movie. And you can see in it the seeds of what's to come. But his last 3 movies are just as good of a trilogy as you could put together, right? Yeah. It's kind of like an American trilogy. Yeah, it is very much like a Rossellini trilogy. Oh
yeah,
right. Just like, good way of putting it. Because I feel like if I was putting together a package, like if someone said, "Give me a package of movies that'll tell me what America is like right now," his movies get in the package. Oof,
yeah, I mean
his movies get in the package.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? And, so Red Rocket, obviously we both really like this movie. I think you can tell that already. Yeah. We both really like, we're Sean Baker stans. We love Sean Baker.
It's funny. Everyone keeps asking me, they're like, do you like this or Florida Project more? Because anybody who knows me knows I loved the Florida Project. I actually famously told Sean Baker to his face, I said, it was my second favorite movie this year. When it came out, and he goes, "Well, what was the first?" And I said, "Phantom Thread." And he was like, "Yeah, then, well," goes, "That's a good choice." And, but
he's an up-to-date cinephile.
Absolutely. He goes all the time.
Yeah,
I actually saw him this year at a screening of Annette. Like, he was going to the cinema. He was he was a fan. He was taking a picture of the poster. He is a cinephile. Like, he loves movies, and I loved Florida Project thoroughly. Just what it was saying, how it was done. The youthful ignorance of the adult problems around, and that when they pierce through hard. Yes. I really loved how it was orchestrated. So I love Florida Project, and it's near and dear to my heart as a very empathetic portrait of what is wrong in a lot of these facets of America. And Red Rocket is different, though. That's the thing. It's like, it's the same but different in how it's done. It's stylized aesthetically the same. And Red Rocket, though, is the subject matter is not entirely empathetic, not particularly to its lead character, who is just a bombastic egoist who the gravitational pull of life centers around him and only him. He can't take responsibility. He can't take criticism. He can't understand anything without the scope of putting it into his own selfish regard.
This is the greatest dumb guy movie.
Oh my
ever.
Goodness!
Because you know this guy. There's a
Yes.
great scene where he's in the car and he's like, I'm focused in, I'm locked in, I'm taking vitamins, I'm taking.
I'm at the peak of my physical performance,
and
my mental game.
And we've all probably encountered people like this, and we've certainly, if you go on YouTube and you find guys, it's always with while they're driving with a phone on their dashboard, like talking and doing a vlog as they drive around.
Yeah.
That's this guy. It's the greatest. It's interesting because we're seeing with two of our most beloved filmmakers, we're seeing these categories of men exposed. We had Come On, greatest uncle movie maybe ever made, like a top tier uncle movie, and now we've got a great dumb guy movie. Just one of the like, just with just such heavy and aggressive dumb guy energy. But like a true dumb guy, he's like a dumb dog. He's like a dumb puppy.
Yeah.
Where it's like you kind of look at him and you feel some sort of affection for him, even though he's dumb and he's kind of awful.
Yeah. No, because there's a...
like he's kind of, so and he's a suitcase pimp, which I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
But it was defined for me. So a suitcase pimp is a male porn star who succeeds in that world, I guess you'd say, by attaching himself to a female porn star and becoming kind of some combination of her co-star and gatekeeper agent.
Gatekeeper agent, yeah.
That's what a suitcase pimp is, and they cycle through, like, as the ladies kind of become, your window in the porn world, and as a woman, not super wide. So as they kind of get washed up or have problems, right, as his ex-wife does, or his current wife, they're still married. They reload with another woman to essentially be a parasite.
Yeah, this is the grimy element of Red Rocket that I think is important for you to suffer through, because it is so uncomfortable.
Did you suffer? Let's be honest. Did you suffer?
No. Because the framework of the movie is
maybe you felt like you should have been suffering.
Yes.
Maybe that's the interesting tension. Is like you don't. But the truth is, like, that's what's so great about Sean Baker. It's like, so whatever. I mean, I guess we're gonna start doing mild spoilers, but I don't know how we could talk about the movie. Otherwise, with Strawberry, right?
Yes.
You see it and you're like, ooh, that's gross. Like when she's 17, she's legal,
3 weeks to 18.
Legal as an eagle. I was like, ooh. But then you see her and you're like,
it's in Texas. It's 16, is it?
Well, yes, it's legal there, whatever. But the point is, like, you see her and you're like, how much in judgment do I want to sit? Because would I, she was coming on to me if I, would I have sex with her? Like, you tell yourself, "Oh no, I would not go there."
Isn't this interesting?
But would you really not go
We're
there?
seeing an enactment of what we were talking about in Licorice Pizza. Is can you do an older man versus a younger woman?
Yeah, but he's a lot older too.
No, but that's what I mean. It's with Harold and Maude. Like, you reverse Harold and Maude. Like, it's an old man with some like a young girl, and it's like it doesn't have his charm.
Very creepy.
Yeah, it becomes very creepy.
But they also, but smartly again, he makes her just old enough that it's not criminal, and it's not like, oh, you really can't do that. Yeah. It's just like, ooh, that's a little...
It's just
and part of the reason they make it work, too, is he's so immature. She's more mature than him.
Yeah, she has a job.
But she's also like...
She's working.
But she also has like a more... Like literally one of the driving features of the first part of the movie is like, he thinks for no reason, right? He believes... Or I want to say for no reason. He believes that he's tricking her into thinking that he's someone that he's not. Yeah. And she knows who he is basically right away. Yeah. It gets revealed a little bit later, but when it gets revealed...
The reveal is excellent. Because she's like, she says something about his stage name, and he's like, excuse me? She goes, oh, go Mike Saber. I know who you were. And they're on a roller coaster. And then he starts going down, and he's like shaking. Like, it's just visually so good.
When you think about it, talk about dumb guy shit, right? He basically tells everyone but her who he is. And, he is on the internet, and everyone in the town knows who he is because it's a small town, and him leaving to be a porn star was like a big deal.
Oh my
like,
goodness!
It was like one of these things that like everyone in town knows about.
He exactly like I love it. It's set in Texas, but he is an embodiment of Los Angeles, isn't he? Because we live in this town, and every party I go to, somebody's trying to tell me, "Here's my reel. Here's all this. This is
You
who
go to
I
more
am."
parties than I do.
Well, I am.
You had a party last night. No, but nobody did that to me.
No. Well, because I don't associate with those kinds of people. I don't like people who project themselves, who sell themselves all the time. It actually exhausts me. If you start doing that, I turn off.
It's hard to be around that kind of energy. Well, that's funny because at the Q&A, Sam Rex even said that. He said, like, we all know these kind of people. I've known these kind of people. I've probably been this kind of person at one point. Emotional vampires.
Emotional vampires. That's a good way of putting it.
Emotional vampires. Like people who they just suck the life out of you talking to you.
Well, no, and then but like you're right. Every conversation
it's draining. Like just talking with someone like that is like.
But he's constantly trying to like make himself like a Ron Burgundy a big deal. Like I'm a big deal, like kind of thing. And so like when he talks with the boyfriend who's going to be the ex-boyfriend, and he goes, "Look my name up. It's Mike Saber. Look me up. Like I've slept with 1,300 women." Like he's like, you're out of your league, dude. You're out of your league.
You're out of your league. Yeah, that's right. They go to the kid's house.
Talk with his parents. His parents then beat him up, and he's like, I could have out cardioed that guy. Again, it's like he can't. He has to kind of talk himself up to convince himself that he is a bigger deal than he is. When he is,
he's the guy who's like, you should be lucky I won't fight you right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You should be you should feel lucky.
I should.
You should be lucky this guy is holding me back. Otherwise, I would whoop your ass.
And so, what's fascinating to me as a character study, which that's what this is. This is a character study, and you could say it's a character study of one man who represents, and I think the juxtaposition of the 2016 election is brilliant because he is an embodiment of the modern day America.
Okay, that's good. I wanted to get to this, so thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I feel like we are seeing the knock-on effect of Trump in the stories we get told in a very interesting way that I wouldn't have necessarily anticipated, because once again, as with Licorice Pizza, as with King Richard, we come back to the charlatan, the huckster, the salesman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is a knock-on effect of Trump.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we are re-engaging, and these characters are, P.T. Barnum, Harold Hill, the Music Man, right? This is a known character type. This is not like we just invented this shit. And I would have to think about it more. And I'm not saying that any one of these movies like came out of that directly.
No. Yeah.
But I just think that kind of character is so much in our minds right now.
Yeah.
The salesman, right? And that's why, yes, during the movie, the movie is taking place during the 2016 election. And the only reason we know that is because they play these audio clips from the campaign as news that people are watching. You do see a MAGA.
It starts with the Trump, Republican National Convention, then you start getting into the debates. Yeah, that's the time frame.
Yes, and you see a big Trump billboard right pretty early in the movie.
Yes, you do.
But
make America great again.
But it is sort of a great example of how Baker deals with politics more broadly. Is that it's kind of baked in and layered in, but not so much talked about.
Yeah.
Which I think is a smart way to do it, because
I agree.
It is about this guy, but it's about also it is about America today and kind of the context in which he exists, right? Mm-hmm. And the environment where he returns to this town, which is definitely Trump country, right? You never doubt that most of these people are going to be Trump voters, right?
I think every single one of them.
And it's just sort of. And I really do think it is. I was having this conversation with you, and I've been having with other people. I don't think that we've adapted well, and I think this movie is a good thing for people to look at, to who the Republican base really is in America, right? Because when I was growing up, it was the moral majority, it was the Christian right.
Yeah.
That's what everybody was fascinated with. The Republican Party was conceived of, in the popular consciousness and in the minds of most people, as an alliance between Chamber of Commerce type business people who had an economic agenda. This is the old sort of what did Buckley call it, like synthesis, or the Republican synthesis was business people who didn't give a shit about social stuff but were willing to throw people in a bone on that as long as they could get tax cuts and permissive corporate rules.
Yeah.
And Christian conservatives who didn't give a shit about the economic stuff but were willing to, so it was basically this allegiance between two groups that not so much even had a common interest as had separate spheres of interest that they were willing to compromise together
and support each other
to build a durable coalition. Right? That was the idea of the Republican Party that I grew up with.
Yeah.
That's the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And the people that are depicted in a movie like Red Rocket were basically non-voters.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe they'd vote Republican for like some cultural reason, but it was very.
But they're definitely not voting in every election. They're maybe every 4 years, and I think.
But you've seen this emergence of a Trump constituency being absorbed into the Republican Party into a kind of right populism that is a mix of like what are they have like anti-immigrant is a big part of that coalition, as it is in all of the kind of right-wing coalitions in the world today.
Yeah,
or a lot of them in the Western right-wing coalitions.
This is true.
Very anti-immigrant. The same in Europe, right? The right-wing coalitions are all very anti-immigrant, right? Anti-immigrants, kind of just generally pissed off, kind of economically populist, but in a way that's kind of inchoate.
Yeah,
where they can't really articulate what they want to happen.
They don't know.
But they feel like the current dispensation is shitty for them, and they're right about that.
Yeah. I mean that's with any populism.
But they're also hedonistic, right? They're not like a lot of them might think of themselves as nominally Christian, but they're certainly not like teetotalers.
No.
You know, they're drinking, they're doing drugs, they're smoking dope, they're fucking, they're doing all that stuff.
But they pray to Jesus every once in a while.
Or they don't, right? But like the point is, the idea of like the buttoned up kind of boring ass, kind of pleasure hating, body hating Republican. That's just those people. I'm not saying those people don't exist, but I feel like the people in this movie, and we talked about this with Antlers, kind of the rise of the sad ass white people, just like fucked white people.
Lubbock, Texas, kind of.
Yeah, but it's hillbilly elegy. It's just like
hillbilly elegy.
But no, it is. It's fucked up white people, like fucked up poor white people who are MAGA and who are reactionary or whatever, but who are not like any part of like the Christian conservative moral majority, nor are they part of obviously the Chamber of Commerce business wing of the Republican Party. This is a group of people that like have been under-depicted, right?
Yeah.
Because there obviously are a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
They're a big constituency in America today, and this movie
I think
is a great window into their world.
And I think that frustration, there was not a lot of conversation or a lot of delegitimization of this conversation, of that frustration, of the people of the these border states of Texas, Arizona. They are frustrated in this immigration sense because they are either directly impacted or they're told they're directly impacted.
Yes, I mean, they believe, correctly or incorrectly. It's funny, we're talking about immigration because it doesn't really come up in this movie.
No.
But once again, you assume that if you ask them how they feel about it.
Subtly so, though, because one of the only business owners you see is an Asian woman.
That's right, Sean Baker's ex-wife.
Is that who she is?
Yes,
she was in Tangerine, right?
Yes, running a donut
shop. She owned
shop.
the donut shop in Tangerine.
She's a professional film donut shop owner.
I love it. I turned to Katie. I'm like, you haven't seen Tangerine, but she owns the donut shop in Tangerine.
I should have asked him if that was the same person.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Did she move to Texas and open donuts?
Honestly, that could actually
in the extended Sean Baker universe.
That honestly could be a reality based off of businesses in California.
They should have Willem Dafoe's character from Florida Project also move to Untitled Texas.
Yes, they should.
They should do and for that matter, the characters from Tangerine, just bring them all together.
Yes,
like somehow all those people end up in the same town. They're called there like the extra Cylons in Battlestar Galactica. They just all show up at the same time. To do like a Sean Baker crossover movie. God, make this happen. Someone with a few million bucks.
Sean Baker, make this happen.
Dude, I would. You're not getting enough money to make your movie, Sean Baker. If I get $5 million, I'll give it to you.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly,
I'll write that check the day after I win the lottery.
I've been asked what would I do if I had the money? I'd be like, well, one, I'd invest it only in the sense
you're
that
so conservative.
Well, you know that, you knew that about me.
I'd save. I mostly save.
No, I would, if I had a substantial amount of money, I would invest, but into perhaps like a business, into movie making endeavors, into funding people's projects.
I would cut that dude a check, no question.
And I would cut Sean Baker
I would cut that dude a check. Saying, Come on, let's do something.
What do you want
Sean.
to do?
Let's roll, Sean.
Pitch to me. How many years of research do you need?
No, in fact, I'll give him a 2-movie deal. I'll give him David Lynch style movie deal. 1, whatever you want. 2, my Sean Baker crossover movie.
Universe.
That'll be your Dune.
That'll
Your Dune will be the Sean Baker crossover movie.
Yeah, let's
The second
do that.
one will be your Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
You want.
No, fantastic.
If I end up being like Dino De Laurentiis.
Well, I mean, so let's get back to Red Rocket. It's there are these subtle allusions. You're right. The 2016 election, immigration is on the mind, and they all relate to because it is this particular just full of ego character. Simon Rex is so thrilling to watch, and I think it's because of this quality you talked about with the dog, because I think there is something to that, because he's constantly juxtaposed to a dog, like, and he's like, oh, that dog knows I got good energy.
The dog likes him the best, I think. Yeah, he likes the dog the best. Would be the better thing to say.
And so everything revolves around him, and obviously that is a commentary about the American identity. And what's really kind of incisive about it is we don't really talk about pornography and the situation.
We just watch it.
We
consume it in massive quantity.
We do, and but
we don't talk about it.
But it's a drastic problem. And I don't want to come off as some prude who wants to be anti-porn, because that's not me. If you do what you want to do, but I also think that there's corruption in that industry. There's a usury in that industry. No doubt about it. And
exploitation.
And it's interesting that the amount of women who can find autonomy and exhibition freedom in the vein of the internet in forms of OnlyFans and such like that, it shows that they have power. The women have power in this industry. Men do not, although men are almost partially required, but not really. Like, you can do kind of solo efforts, but a lot of people do kind of demand in their pornography needs kind of a fill-in for who they are within the situation, and that's particularly straight pornography. Sometimes. I mean, not all the time, but often you have that.
But your standard pornography is going to involve a penis at some point.
And it's so interesting because this character is that. He has no power, no stake. Suitcase Pimp describes it well because he has to do that. That industry does not demand him.
Yeah, but I mean, the truth is, like, it's a very narrow funnel for the women even, right? Like, yes, a few of them become stars and make a lot of money and whatever, but mostly they're disposable. They get chewed up and spat out. Yeah. And a lot of money ends up in the hands of either Suitcase Pimps or producers. Yeah. All the people who are parasitic on this giant industry, right?
And it has to be that.
Which basically is a giant maw, just ever consuming the lives of 18-year-old women.
Yeah.
Who, have these short careers and, I mean, whatever. Like, you never want to overgeneralize about any group of people, right?
No.
I think it's important to acknowledge people's autonomy and agency. It's also important, though, to say that I mean, a lot of, a high percentage or an unfortunate percentage of the people who get involved in an industry like that are having one of potentially a range of problems, right? Yeah. It's just but once again, there's no easy way to analyze a situation like that. I will say that apparently. This is funny, right? I mentioned in a group of people Asa Akira. Do you know who Asa Akira is?
I've heard that name.
Yeah, she's a famous female adult film star, and nobody admitted to knowing who she was. I don't know if the people. I don't know if I'm just the only.
I don't
one
watch
who's
a lot
ever
of porn anymore, but
congratulations. But she's apparently doing a Q&A, saw the movie and really loved it, which I think bespeaks well of it. That someone from that industry said, "Oh yeah, this is." And she was in Starlet too, so I mean, she has some pre-existing relationship with Sean Baker, but she saw it, she loved it, and she wanted to talk about it. Which, like I said, it speaks well of the movie that someone in that industry saw this and thought, "Yeah, this is it. Yeah, that's right. They got it right."
Yeah,
which certainly contributes to the notion that when you watch this very entertaining, fun to watch, cool, interesting movie, you are getting a picture or an insight into a world that you would otherwise have a hard time accessing in an honest way.
And because it has comedic qualities, you think it's exaggerated, but this is how it is. Like the usury, the exploitation of women, and that the men in it are in such desperate situations to maintain their relevancy that they have to be predatory and they have to find their next, like they said, like this parasitic host that they need.
She's the meal ticket.
Yeah.
Right? She's the meal ticket. You're just a dude with a dick who will fuck for money, and that's a lot.
And
many are called and few are chosen.
They mock it. It's so funny. At one point he said, I got an award for best oral, and
it's kind of a running
the person
joke.
goes like, what do you, isn't that their work? And then he starts describing like how he like directs them in a scene, like putting their head like
yes, how he's really the key element.
And I'm like that he's the key element. And then at one point, the Strawberry, who's played immensely well by Susanna Son, she does make a comment about, you know, what did you do in that scene? Like, and then you find out that there was multiple men in the scene. It wasn't even just him, and that everybody got the award in the scene, not just that him as the man. All the men got the award. She got the award.
Everyone.
And it's just it delegitimizes the whole like process, but he has to hold on to that kind of thing.
About the thing. There's another great award-related kind of conversation. He claims that there were people booing. Like he played Paul Walker's character.
That was hilarious.
A spoof of Fast and the Furious. And it was the biggest upset of the night. He didn't win. People were booing at the AVNs. And then he says, and then Paul Walker had to go get killed. And
that ruined my life. Like, it ruined his life. That Paul Walker had to go off and die.
It's just it's such a perfect sequence. And it's a credit, I guess. It's a funny scene, but it's also a credit to Simon Rex that he sells a scene that would be sort of very over the top.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But he sells the idea that actually he feels bad. Like, he feels disappointed that this guy died because it really hurt his career.
Yeah.
Doing Fast and the Furious porno spoofs.
It is such a hard act to balance, isn't it? Like, because the things he says are either, you know, jaw-droppingly stupid or eye-rollingly stupid, but you like him regardless.
Yeah, he's
and
a dumb
you
guy. He's a dumb dog. You want to pat his head.
Yeah, because he's an attractive man. Like, there's this kind of childlike ignorance to him, especially when he's riding a bike. Like, you know, it's just wonderfully done. Like, this would be a difficult character to like, and I don't think you end up liking him. I think especially at the end, I don't think you really are supposed to like him. But there is a quality where you feel bad at the same time, but you're like, oh, you're stupid. Like, oh, you're ignorant.
Guy. What else are you gonna do?
Yeah, I
mean, there's a great montage early in the movie where he tries to get a straight job and fails.
Oh, it's so
and
good.
Immediately starts to be relatively successful selling weed. Right? I mean, he basically goes to a bunch of different places like restaurants and stores. And everyone's like, well, you got a 17-year gap in your resume.
I do have to say there is something. I think that scene also enhances a sympathy, which is
like
to
he's
him.
Actually kind of trying.
He's trying. Well, I mean, imagine that.
It.
I mean, you go off and you are in an industry that honestly is known for its exploitation and usury. And he is now left adrift, and he doesn't have an employment history, but is he not capable of waiting tables? He absolutely is. I think he'd be a great waiter for his personality and for his entertainment qualities.
Yeah, I know. You'd give him a tip.
What is the hesitancy there? Oh, that their customers wouldn't be comfortable being served by a porn star? You know, honestly, I feel like that explains a lot of division in Texas. Doesn't it? It's like they want to use and exploit in some ways, but then they have like a prudish nature that still persists.
And that's what's weird about this kind of new right constituency we were talking about earlier. Is like, talk about like invisible industries, right? Porn, weed, right? Mm-hmm. Those are two great industries in America, right? Where not everybody consumes this stuff, but they are extremely widely consumed.
They are, yeah.
Huge, marijuana, biggest cash crop in America. Right, by far. I mean, in terms of amount of money,
there's porn addiction in religious communities.
Well, but people just consume a shitload of porn and they consume a shitload of weed, and weed is coming out of, and they're both like legal in a lot of ways. I mean, porn is basically legal to make.
They do make the comment, I'm glad weed is illegal in Texas.
Yes,
so that we can
you
sell it for a higher price.
Yeah, because in California, all you can do is sell it to kids and criminals, right?
Yeah.
And illegal immigrants, because those are the only people who can just walk into a weed store and buy it legally.
Yeah.
But so you have these huge industries, just huge by any standard, right? Huge industries that are nevertheless taboo. Like, we all consume them, or know plenty of people consume them. We all know plenty of people who smoke weed and look at porn, right? But they're still, being associated with them is still taboo. And it's very weird, right? Because it does speak to the age-old American contradiction, right? Which is that we have Puritans and pornographers, and that's it. Like, we seem to have a very hard time finding a middle ground, which is why I'm always speaking in praise of horny movies, because I want to see movies that are sexy and horny in the mainstream, tapping into that energy, that aren't porn.
Yeah.
Like, just because I think there's those, this is, God, what's more important to life than sex? I mean, it's pretty much the most important thing. It's what perpetuates.
I like food, but I like both of those things.
Basic sensual pleasures that are transcendent of time and place, that we all, or almost all of us, engage in on some level, want to engage in, think about, right? But it's either you just kind of don't talk about it and it's dirty, or you watch porn, which is just so debased, right? And such just a gross. And I've consumed plenty of porn. I'm not here to be a Puritan, but it's like, it's not good, right? And I'm personally, for myself, I'm glad that I came of age before, like, now, because if I was watching this shit when I was 15, I don't know what the fuck it would do to me.
Yeah.
When I was that young, like, it took you 2 minutes to load a naked picture.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it was exciting, but it wasn't like watching, HD whatever.
Could you argue that it was more exciting because of your imagination?
I'm just saying, like, I think it probably does fuck kids up, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't, if your first idea of sex was like, oh yeah, this is the way it's going to be, and it's not going to be that way, especially not the first time you do it. The first time you do it is going to be a fucking nightmare.
So awkward.
Not a fucking nightmare, but it's going to be like, the best case scenario is like, oh, it's kind of funny and awkward,
it's
right?
cute and awkward.
Yeah.
That's best.
It's not going to be like...
Mine was awkward, not cute.
Yeah,
so.
but I'm saying it's not going to be great, right?
Yeah.
It's certainly not going to be like you doing fucking acrobatics. Like, I can see how that would fuck someone up, but it is sort of very American, and part of, like I said, this looking into demimondes of Baker, to go into, like, for the second time really, because Starlet's about this too, the world of porn, which is, like I said, the thing that is simultaneously huge and underground, or like underground in the weirdest fucking way, where we all know about it, a lot of people consume it, very huge industry, and yet you can't, like, it would be considered very gauche, even in the, like, if you just met someone, you might talk about a movie you like. You're not going to talk about a porn that you like. Like, oh, man, I just watched this great scene. Even though people are watching more porn than they are fucking Up-to-Date Cinephile movies,
That's
right?
very true.
Like, you wouldn't be like, oh, man, do you like a DP scene? Or, what do you go for? Do you think it's do you blowjob first? Or, like, cunnilingus first? That would be regarded as a very... If you started having that conversation with someone you barely knew...
That's a conversation out of a Yorgos Lanthimos film.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, like,
in like Killing of a Sacred Deer.
But, like, it's funny given how much, like I said, it's a very weird disconnect to have something that people consume a lot of.
Yeah,
like, people consume more porn than they watch feature films.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I don't have like any stats to back that up, but
I'm pretty sure that's true.
I'll bet anyone that's true, and. Yet you talk about movies, people are like, oh, fine, maybe they care, maybe they don't, but nobody doesn't think that's weird. Nobody talks about porn.
No, yeah.
Like, oh, I love that scene. What a great performance.
Yeah.
By Asa Akira. Shout out to Asa, come on the pod. She's done a lot of great podcasts, and she's a great talker. But, it's just, I just love his desire to surface things that are both enormous and underground.
Yeah.
Prostitution, enormous and underground. All these people
Poverty.
live on the fringes
fringe
of society who are, I mean, that's a group of people, right? Because we talk about the homeless, but we don't talk about the precariously housed, people who are just barely not homeless, like very close to homelessness.
Yes.
Huge population.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
Don't talk.
Underground.
Yeah. Trans, and the trans experience. It might be trans prostitution, but trans experience in Los Angeles is. It is more tolerated, but different. Like it's just these
still, we're talking about
marginalized
people who are still the outcasts, right? Of
Yeah.
that, because I mean, when you're especially like that, like street walking prostitutes,
Yeah.
right? Which went away for a while and now are coming back because of laws that have, like Sesta Fosta, that have hurt
Yeah.
sex workers. But
So yeah, I agree with you. There is such a human understanding of the marginalized that's happening with Sean Baker. And it can only be done with genuine curiosity. And we've spoken about this on my podcast, that curiosity is such a wonderful trait
Yes.
for I think a human being, but I think in particular storyteller.
Well,
Because
it is the thing that redeems any narrative art,
yeah.
right? Whether it's novels, even songs, movies, curiosity about your subject.
Yeah.
Love, yes, but curiosity.
Yeah.
And wanting
I
to...
don't think he loves this character, but I think he's very
No,
curious.
no.
Yeah.
I don't think he loves this character, but he is curious about him.
He certainly is.
He's curious about, because one insightful thing that Baker said during that Q&A that I saw was, you find these guys, you meet these guys, because this is based on guys he met while he was making Starlet, or that was the initial inspiration for it, and you find them amusing and they have hilarious stories, but then you go home wondering, should I have been so amused by that?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that in that movie. Like, on the one hand, oh, this guy's gross, but on the other hand, like, oh man, if I could get with Strawberry, would I do it?
Mm-hmm.
Easy for me to say right now, sitting on this couch, but like, if that was there in front of me,
Yeah.
I mean, how much would I resist that temptation?
It's an interesting way of putting it, right? Because the whole movie operates on what he said. It's like you get amused by this story, but when you go home, when you really think about it, does it make you feel uncomfortable? Does it make the implications of that person and that industry or whatever, that personality, you start questioning it. And that's the end. The end of this movie is one of the more... I mean, Florida Project had kind of a enigmatic and more so that I think you can read into directly, and kind of the idyllic qualities in a child's mind and escaping into something that is happy.
Yes.
But in this one, it is wonderfully done. Again, Sean Baker going to each member of NSYNC to get bye, to get it in the movie. To open it... It's in the middle, which is an interesting quality about Strawberry. She sings this very almost Adele-like version of Bye Bye Bye, and you're like, oh no. Women who, especially as you talk about, this short window of the pornography industry, even if they don't want it, if they get exploited and put into that industry, based off of an ignorant precociousness at that young age, she's a talented young lady, and she's going to get chewed up and spit out, and that's tragedy.
That scene goes in because she could do that, because Susanna San had that ability.
Yeah.
And so they insert that scene, and apparently they had to shoot it twice, one with an original of hers, because they didn't know if they could clear Bye Bye Bye.
Yeah. And so it gets brought back at the end.
But that's why they did Bye Bye Bye, because she had that great version.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and they
fantastic.
Were like, and he was like, well, maybe we can get that. And
maybe.
they got it.
And it works so well, right? It works
and,
incredibly...
respect to the guys that didn't sing. Thank you for signing off on that, because I'm sure he couldn't give you a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's, the song is an important part of the movie.
I think so, yeah.
And it definitely, like, I don't know, like, I think it's, I hope those guys think it's cool to have their song sort of be a plot point of
Isn't it remarkable?
Movie.
Probably the rights to get that song was more than this movie cost.
Yeah, but I'm guessing they had to cut him a deal.
Oh no, I'm sure they did give him a deal. I'm just saying genuinely, like,
yes.
if another movie, like a big budget movie,
yes, if it was going to be used this way in a big movie, yes, they would have
been like, you're going to pay us $5-10 million, whatever it is,
especially to feature it in this way. It's not, because it's not even that it appears. It's like I said, it's like
featured.
It appears throughout the movie, and it's like a plot point in the movie that she sings it, right?
Yeah, and
in
then
this very lovely way,
and it gets referenced by the wife, which is funny. She's like, "Ain't no lie, bye bye bye," to kick him out of the house. But at the end, I wanted to ask you what you thought of this, because the end is it goes in reverse. the song goes backwards to him imagining her coming out and like doing a striptease or like dancing in her bikini, and it strikes you as imaginary.
Yes,
And I mean, it's done.
That.
It does that in that way, but I'm still wrestling with it because it makes me feel gross. Because is it saying that he will succeed and she will be his like anchor?
I mean, I
parasitic host,
okay,
or is it just in his head?
So there's a couple different levels we could talk about the ending on. I think it is definitely all in his head.
Yeah.
I don't know that it says anything at all about what's gonna happen.
Sure.
In like the time after the movie.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to say about that. It's clearly in his head. I think it's very hard for me to imagine that as a thing that actually happens.
No. Yeah, I mean, everything aesthetically speaking, the use of cinema and sound. It is such a psychological effect that it has to be personal.
Now, so yes, it is similar to the end of the Florida Project in the sense that it may or may not. Like the end of the Florida Project is sort of ambiguous. Does that really happen, or is that kind of something happening in her head? Mm-hmm. This I think is pretty clearly something happening in his head. It's a little ambiguous. What does it mean? How do we think about it? It's a lot more. I think the end of the Florida Project is, it's pretty clear what he's saying with that.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas with this is no, I mean, I guess that's the thought that's sort of driving him to keep walking and walking and walking to think like maybe this can work out. But it also, I think, imagining her seducing him. Like, part of the reason the movie works and manages to not get so icky that you just can't watch it is that she is more mature than he is. She is very strong-willed. And you're not... And you are rooting for her and holding out hope that maybe she's playing him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That maybe she is going to use him as her ticket out.
That's true. There's a back and forth.
How she sees him.
Yeah.
Right. So she seems very clear-eyed about what the transaction is, and she seems to regard him smartly, I think, in kind of the same way we regard him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of as a, like he's sort of entertaining. She likes to observe him. I think we can say she likes to fuck him. I mean, which is, that is what it is. Like, you can feel how you want to feel about it, but she enjoys that aspect of it. She sees him as she wants to get out, and he is providing her an avenue out of a town that clearly is not a place that you'd want to stick around.
No.
Right? So, I do think that she seems mature and clear-eyed in a way that he doesn't. And so I think that the end even... I think one way to read the end is that he's thinking about what he wants, but she's the one who may ultimately get over on him.
Yes.
Using her sort of sexuality and his attraction to her, but also his belief that she's kind of his next meal ticket as a way to kind of get what she wants. Yeah. Right? Which doesn't like paper over what's gross about what he does, but does make her a reasonable foil, or almost an adversary in a sense, like, because their interests are somewhat adversarial, right? Yeah. So
they're both parasitic, but which one's going to win out?
Yes,
in the end?
but I mean, I don't know what I'd call that. What she's trying to do, parasitic, right? I mean, she is.
It's exploitative.
She's serving her own turn, yeah. I mean, but she's offering something, right? I mean,
it's true.
She's, I mean, that's the question you can ask yourself about her is like, how does she feel about this transaction? Yeah. Right? And can she separate out like her own sense of her interests from just like what is fun and exciting and transgressive about what she's doing? Like, she clearly, is enjoying like having sex with a porn star, right? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to, well, whatever. I'm just going to say what I'm saying. People can think what they want to think. Like, I think that you can see what's going on as sort of gross and weird, but also say, like, well, she's not a passive participant in this.
She isn't. She's
active.
active.
I think that you can hold both those thoughts in your head, because I think to make her just like a victim of him really does a disservice to her and a disservice to the story, right?
Yes, I agree.
She might ultimately be done dirty by him, and what he's doing might ultimately be gross and creepy, but I mean, she has him clocked from the jump.
Yeah.
I mean, she's clearly much smarter than him.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, because he's so, like I said, he's so dumb. He thinks that she might be the only person in town who doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
It's like
when at the same time he tells everybody else who he is.
Yes, it's the dumbest thing. And when it turns out that she's known all along, you're like, well, of course. Because I remember seeing this, like, Sean Baker is great at that kind of a reveal, which is like the kind of course she knew.
Yeah.
Like, of course she knew.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there thinking, like, how does she not know? It's like, well, she knew the whole time.
She knew the whole time. Yeah.
And he thought she didn't know because he's a fucking moron.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and so it's a brilliant, juggling act of a story, isn't it? I mean, it is.
Definitely.
It's a brilliant personal character study. It has a commentary on industry, the porn industry. In its setting in Texas, it has a commentary on politics, industries around in Texas, and the kind of the exploitation at the center of everything. It really
I wouldn't
has
say commentary, though. I think it invites a conversation. Thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's setting up a multi-layered experience.
Because like in terms of engaging with social issues, political issues, whatever, the job of a filmmaker like this, I think, or the best use of the filmmaker's art is to open doors, right? Not to close them, which is what Baker understands. Baker doesn't have a point per se. I would say if he has a point, his point is we should be compassionate.
I think so.
Like,
it's a compassionate project.
Even in this situation, yes, I agree. He doesn't like this character as much as he might like all the other characters in Tangerine or Florida Project, right? But he still is interested enough in him to make a movie about him.
No, there's a tragedy and sympathy that is invited upon this kind of character, that they exist in the kind of cultural milieu of America, and they almost define kind of America and kind of the exceptional spirit that it portrays. But he definitely, there's a tragedy to this character.
The fundamental truth of caring about human beings, wanting to see social justice, wanting to see the world get better, is something that Sean Baker understands, at least on an intuitive, if not an explicit level, which is that at some point, if you want the world to be a better place, you actually have to get beyond judgment of individual people.
Yeah.
The judgment of individual people is a mug's game, and it's not going to make anything better.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no value in being able to look at this per se, bad, good, bad. Because everyone, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, is where they are. I mean, how much of your life is determined by your genetics and the circumstances of your birth, neither of which you can have any control over, right? So, when you look at a society like ours, and when you look at the problems that society has, if you're actually interested in addressing them, you have to think about why things are this way.
Yeah.
Why do we live in a society where someone with with whatever it is, that Simon Rex's character comes into the world with? Why the interaction of societal factors with whoever he came in as leads him down this road, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I've said this to you before, the thing I hate the most that people say and think that makes sense is, well, if I were him, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
That's incoherent.
No.
That's not just wrong. That's incoherent. If you were him, you would have done that, because that's what it is to be him.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were in his exact circumstance but did something different, you'd be another person. You would not be him.
Yeah.
You'd be some hypothetical person that you've made in your mind to explain why you're morally superior to that person. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that there isn't evil in the world, that we don't need to judge people, that at some point we need to deal with people who can't fit in.
Yeah.
But the most, there's very few like true evil sociopathic people. Those people are really a very tiny sliver of humanity.
Very tiny, yes.
Most of the people who do bad things, even really bad things way worse than this character, kill people. They do it because kind of that's the way they were pushed.
Yeah.
Right? Like their life, like I said, the combination of just their inherent genetic dispositions, their upbringing, their environment, their opportunities, that sort of led them into a context where that was a good option for them.
Yeah.
Doing porn or doing crimes, selling drugs. And then once you get into that world, all the bad things about that world, being a suitcase pimp, being someone who might kill someone because you're involved in the drug trade and it's a violent trade.
Yeah.
Those things get on the table for you.
Yeah.
Right? So you increase the probability that you'll become the kind of person who'll do shit like that.
Yeah.
And the first step is just to try to understand. So my friend Jacob, who I'm doing this podcast, listed the Dead Reckoner research agenda. He's a sociologist, and as someone who is more like a philosophy-minded person, I always jump to the moral, to the prescriptive. I'm like, is this good? Is this bad? What should we do about this? Suicide is on the rise in this population. What should we do about that? And what Jacob told me is that, prescriptive, we can talk about that. Frameworks, we can talk about that. But the first thing you need to do is just get as accurate an account as you can of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like before you judge it, before you evaluate, before you even try to categorize it into some sort of a framework. You have to understand the phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it starts. And that is what we do a shitty job of, because we're so interested in separating the goodies and the baddies that we're disinterested. Like once we've decided that a group of people are fucking untouchables, right?
Yeah.
Once we decided that a group of people are coastal elite liberals or fucking MAGA chuds or whatever, we no longer have any interest in understanding them.
Yeah.
And at that point, once you lose that interest, it's done.
Yes.
You can't do anything. Because the first step is always, and I'm not talking about this as some kumbaya understanding. What I'm saying,
no.
Just to understand the phenomenon.
Yeah.
How do we get people like this?
Yeah.
What are the combination of psychological, genetic and sociological factors that lead to the existence of this person or that person? The way you learn that is just by looking at them and being curious about them. And that's the thing that Baker understands.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something we, as you're talking about this division, and it goes beyond ambivalence and indifference. It's not that they don't engage or want to understand because of indifference. They palpably hate, and they just don't want to understand.
And the most pointed form of hatred is just, I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to try.
Yeah, I'm
going to relish my ignorance of your plight.
Yeah, and that is what is at a disservice of the conversation today. Is like you can't get anybody with a difference of experience or understanding to even remotely care about the other side or another point of view, or putting the literal putting yourself in their shoes and try and maybe you can't even do that. Maybe there's a barrier of entry to that, but to be curious, to understand, to be empathetic. That is the project that Sean Baker is doing, and I think it is a wonderful project, just cinematically. But I think there's something to it that will go beyond that. I think it's instructional. I think it's painting a wonderful portrait of the marginalized, the misunderstood, and really seeking to give context, layers, and a beauty to it. Yeah. And sometimes that it's not a idyllic beauty. Sometimes it's a gross beauty, and I think Red Rocket is that. It's kind of a gross beauty to what the human experience is.
But at the end of the day, what is this movie? It's fucking funny, it's fucking entertaining, and it looks great.
Yes.
Right? Like, this is not like fucking eat your vegetables movie making. We're going to talk about that maybe soon.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in eat your vegetables movie making. Like, I'm not interested in that shit. This is entertainment.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you want people to pay attention, be entertaining.
Yeah.
There's nothing more useful than that.
Yeah. I do agree.
If people find you funny or entertaining, they'll talk to you.
They'll listen.
Even if you disagree, they'll talk to you. But if you scold people, they're gonna fucking hate you because nobody likes to be scolded.
Nobody likes it. Yeah.
No person. This is the shit that I can't stand about the sanctimony directed at people like this. Is like nobody likes to be scolded. Like no self-respecting person is gonna let themselves be scolded.
No.
Like you're asking people, if you want people to listen to you scold them, you're asking them to debase themselves.
Yeah.
You're asking them to you're asking a grown adult people to be talked to as if they're children.
Yeah.
Like being lectured by their betters. Like nobody's going to put up with that.
No. Nobody.
It's
not productive.
People have self-respect.
Yeah.
People have fucking dignity. Like you can't ask them to just shit on themselves so they'll listen to your right opinions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you want to talk to people, you have to, it's a transaction. You have to give them something.
Yeah.
And if what you're giving them is fucking wagging your finger at them, they're going to hate you.
Yeah.
And you would hate you too.
You would. Yeah.
Because no self-respecting person wants to be fucking lectured by someone who holds them in contempt.
Yeah. And also, and maybe we could look to conclude, but I think it's Sean Baker's lack of contempt that allows such an openness.
He has no contempt for any of these people.
No.
Not even for Simon Rex's character.
No.
He doesn't have contempt for him. I mean, because even then he sees what's amusing, he sees what's charming, and he also
sees what's a problem.
Sees like that this guy's the product of a situation.
And
he's not just like
in a culture. Like it's really that's all it is.
It's not like he's not looking out to see like this person is like some sort of unique evil that has no explanation except for the darkness of his soul. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this has been a really rarely do I effuse about two movies
in a
row,
right.
And it is kind of
sometimes they make good ones, right? And what
they sometimes do, and you relish it, right? Sometimes I get a little down. Somebody told me the more movies you see, the less magic there is in it, and I somewhat agree, but only because most movies are not this, right?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that true? Well, it's true in the sort of trivial sense, which is
trivial. Yes.
Like when you start doing what we're doing, which is we try to watch a lot of movies and talk about them.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm not doing this project, I'm just going to see the movies that I'm pretty sure I'm going to like.
Yes.
Right. You're more voracious than I am.
Yeah. It's punishment.
It's very hard for me if I don't have a reason to watch a movie that I don't at least think I might like.
Well, that is...
Or that I'm not intrigued by in some way.
But I think that's everybody, right?
I would... Like, for instance, what movies have we seen? I would never have gone and seen Antlers, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just wouldn't. It's not... I would not have taken the time, right? No. But I do think that, like... See, I think it throws the good ones into sharper relief, though. I
do agree.
I actually find it a useful exercise to watch some movies that are just okay.
Yeah.
Or just bad, right?
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't do otherwise, because it clarifies your thinking about what's good and not. And when you see the thing, like, maybe you become a harder watch the way that, like, stand-up comedians have a harder time laughing because you're kind of trying to be more tuned to what's good.
Yeah.
And you're less easily sort of taken in by things that are, like, I always come back to Marvel shit. I don't know, like, things that are professionally done but not inspired.
Yeah. Professional but not inspired is a good way of putting it.
I feel like there's a lot of movies like that, which are like, there's not something egregiously wrong with them to the point that you could point and say, like, what the fuck is that? Although sometimes there is. but they're just lifeless.
Yeah, lifeless.
Right? But I do think, I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, we haven't been doing this project for super long.
No.
So I'll have to check back in a year or two maybe, but I don't think that my watching a bunch of marginal movies decreased the spark I felt in either of these movies, and
I agree.
I don't know that I felt it more or less than I would have felt it had I not been watching more movies just in general. I don't think that I did. I mean, the problem is how you respond to a movie is so contingent, right? It's contingent on not just big picture things like the quality of the movie and your taste, but also like how you feel that day, kind of what your life's like at that moment. Like, some things just are going to resonate a lot at one moment, and something... I mean, that doesn't mean you won't be able to see a kind of quality, but, like, I don't know, just some movies are very... hit you at the right time in your life, in the day, in that week. And that's a subjective experience, right? So, I don't feel that diminished. I think it's only true for me in the sense that it's trivially true, right? Which is that if you see more movies, some of them will be crappy.
But
and
but
like,
I do
this
I do
sucks.
think
Why did you guys make this shit?
Yeah, but I do think the highs really resonate highly when you do see them. That's why I think I'm really positive about these movies, because
I also think that film, especially as experienced in the theater, is overwhelming enough that you don't have the capacity sort of to technically break it down in real time in a way that kind of, at least I don't. Maybe if you're really good, maybe if you're like a real gifted editor, you kind of see everything.
Yeah.
But for me, seeing a movie in a movie theater is still so aesthetically overwhelming. It's not like reading, right? Like if I see words on a page, obviously you can consume them at your own rate. And when you break them down, you can break them down in real time very easily because you have control over the rate and the experience. And it's still words on a page. Whereas if I'm in a movie theater, the movie can still suck me in and take me out of my mind if it's good enough.
Yeah.
If I'm in my mind, it's probably not good. If I'm in my mind thinking like, oh, well, look at that. That's interesting. That's weird. It's probably not that great.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas if it's good enough, it can get me into that aesthetic space where I'm not constantly having a narrative in my head of like, ooh, what's that? This is interesting. Oh, that's boring. That's stupid. I'm just like in it. And both of these movies had me in it, which is to say that I was really engaged with the work. We all know that feeling, right? When the kind of time goes away and you don't even feel the passage of time and the movie just kind of overbears you.
Yeah.
Right? And there are great movies that maybe don't do that, but I do think that first and foremost, that's what we're looking for, is the catharsis that comes from having something just suck you into its world to the point where you kind of forget about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is one thing that going to theaters helps do, right?
It does.
It's a dark room with a huge screen. It's fucking loud, right? Harder to do that at home, although that can happen. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I don't really agree, but I mean, ask me if we keep doing this for a few years.
I don't necessarily agree, but it's been told to me. That was mainly what I was saying. It's been told to me.
People get cynical, right? And big business is cynical, right? Whether it's big movie business or fucking big, cereal business, right? Yeah. Big business is cynical. And the reason that like a lot of big movies it's not surprising that big movies suck a lot of the time.
Yeah,
they're not made under conditions that are artistically fertile.
Yeah,
not at all. They're just not like they're made by the money is the checks are signed by business people, right? And that's why Spielberg is so special, because he can make $100 million movie on artistic terms, right?
Yeah,
whatever you think about it, it's his movie.
It is. Absolutely.
And most people don't have that kind of juice.
No.
And when it happens, it kind of happens by accident, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, I guess, that's Sean Baker. He can make movies for cheap, which means he gets to make a more artistic movie because there's less people standing over his shoulder.
And it is wonderful that he creates these tapestries with people that are non-professional actors. Yep. They are real in the circumstance, and it resonates so well.
There's some great performances given by new actors in this movie.
Oh yeah, Bruehl Rod, who plays Alexei. Susanna's son plays Strawberry.
Those two are the two that are like kind of actors at least.
Yeah,
but the rest of the townspeople, I mean,
this is true.
His mother-in-law and his sort of friend, I forget the dude's name. Both great performances.
Yeah.
Sean Baker was actually pitching them to the audience. He's like, these people are ready to go.
They're great.
Reach out to them.
They're fantastic.
There's anyone in the industry in here. You should go.
They live in
very sweet. I thought it was sweet that he was out there, not suitcase pimping, but pimping his people.
Another case of similarity to these movies, where they highlight people that are not, stage actors who are not highlighted, not given the limelight that they deserve. These unknowns to these places and circumstances that have vibrant personalities and deserve some recognition. I think that's lovely about this movie,
and it also speaks to his ability as a director, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
He's getting great performances out of, really great performances out of people who've never acted before and who did not set out to act in their lives.
So I think ultimately this was a great week that we got to see two movies that are enveloping, that are involving, that are, have something to say and the reason for existing. And obviously that's not always the case. And I think these were great experiences in the cinema.
Yes. Highly recommend.
We highly recommend both of them. You should go venture them out. Red Rocket will probably be a slow, if you're in LA, it's available. If you're elsewhere, it might take a little bit.
Wide on Christmas.
Wide on Christmas. But you should all go see these movies. West Side Story, Red Rocket. They were great. Ben, Dead Reckoner podcast. Any final words for them?
Go see these movies. Shout out to anyone involved in any of these movies. Come on the show.
Yeah.
We'll take anyone. We'll take whatever.
Anybody. Literally anybody. If you fall upon this and you want to come talk, we'll do that.
Whatever. Anyone. Come on the show. We'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, we'll absolutely do that. I think we're going to try and have another one this week. It might be a little later this week, depending on schedule. But
when I can drag my ass to may not be as good. We think is
one of them I can already tell you is miserably bad.
Don't tell them which one though.
I'm not going to tell you which one. But it's a little teaser. One of them.
If you're waiting for one of Kyle's pissed off angry takes,
there's a lot.
It's coming. Stay tuned. Watch the space. Big things coming.
Yeah. The other one I will be seeing today, so we'll see what happens. But
might also suck.
You might also suck. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining Up-to-Date Cinephile, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.